So before I start with the panel discussion, maybe a brief introduction of Pawan and Agnello. I think both of them are pretty well-known figures in the marketing industry. Agnello, as Lavanya just mentioned, he's been on the creative side of things, and he's kind of has a lot of laurels to his credit. He was he was he's right now the co-founder of Spinach Experience Design, which he's co-founded, and before that he's been ranked multiple times among the most awarded and influential figure in India in the advertising industry. He has made, he's made his mark at Cannes. He was the first Indian to win the Titanium Integrated Lion, and he co-started Taproot, which opened the doors for a lot of entrepreneurs on the creative side to take the plunge and start their own agencies. So he's been kind of a leader in that sense, and he is till date the only Indian to be in the 100 most creative people listed by the US-based marketing vertical Fast company. Coming to Pawan is currently working with as a chief growth officer with the House of Abhinandan Lodha, which is a real estate company, and before that he was group CMO and head of D2C business at Windgreens, which was into food and FMCG sector. So that's a big transformation from a very consumer-led company to a very high-value product selling. So we'll talk about how those transformations change the marketing mindset. And prior to that, he's also worked with Big Bazaar and Tata Housing. So I think there's some background to real estate, and probably this is a homecoming for Pawan. So basically, I just talked about how AI is now kind of moving center stage, and everybody's talking about the role of AI. Agnello, starting from you, how do you see the creative function being impacted by technology? Because so far, technology was all about managing logic, right? And suddenly now you find that whether it's finding copy or perfecting, finding that tagline or creating acronyms or jingles or whatever it does a pretty good job. And at least for people like us who are laymen and who struggle with these kind of things, we don't have that creative mindset. It's like a blessing in disguise. But for a person like you, where the standards are much higher, I don't know if you've tried and tested using some of these technologies. How do you see that impacting the creative function?
So firstly, I think, can everybody hear me? I think we have to worry about the narrative industry which comes with every technology, which is a lot of bluster about it, this and that, with people not knowing what it will do. So just to give an analogy, when film was invented, it took them, I think, more than a decade or 14 years to realize, oh, we can tell stories and make movies. Otherwise, nobody knew what to do with this thing that captures moving image. And I think we are in that phase for AI, because normal creativity is possibly 3 stages for a creative person. One is curation, which happens inside the mind, which is you're thinking about, what if I do this, what if I do that, what if this, what if we tried this? Then there is invention or creation, and then there is execution, which is actually going out and making it happen. I think curation and execution, the first and the last, I think AI is pretty good. It will do a fantastic job, probably better than, say, the handmade kind of curation that we have. So usually it took a creative person to imagine what something would look like, and his imagination was experienced imagination, so he could tell what it would look like, and he would choose or discard even before one had to create it very expensively. Now AI can take care of that, and everybody will know what something looks like or feels like or sounds like. But it cannot invent stuff, because its source material is stuff that is already on the net, correct? If it's not out there, it cannot. So just to give you a very basic layman example, I was on this stage maybe a year ago discussing AI with the marketing head of Microsoft, and we tried a experiment. where we both said Mumbai's favorite food, and I wrote down the first thing that came to my mind. How do you show it? A visual of it. So I wrote down there's a hand uh, holding the bar of a local train, and stations are whizzing past, and that hand has a half-eaten vada pav. Correct? She put that into AI. So what she got, and she put it up on screen, was the Gateway of India with a giant vada pav the size of the Taj Mahal planted there. Correct? So here is the difference. It will take this, it will take that, marry it together. Show me winter in Punjab, snowfall is winter, Punjab is golden temple, will put you together. But when you invent stuff, you'll say, what if an Eskimo rises out of the waters of the golden temple? Now, how will this look like? You can ask AI to show you, but you have to ask. And what you're calling prompt engineering is basically the creative thinking that asks AI that question to show you. So curation, trying all various options, and execution, it can do a good job. I can't yet see AI inventing stuff. For example, it will never give you a line. It would have never given you a line that said, to be or not to be is the question, because it's grammatically wrong. But it's grammatically correct. And that's why we know it today. So that kind of stuff, not yet. But the rest of it, yeah, I mean, like you said, the first base creativity, which a lot of it is actually only execution. Not all creativity is invention. A lot of it is only execution, a lot of it is only curation. It will take care of all that very easily and probably put the spotlight more only on people who can invent or create what we call conceptualization out of nothing.
Pawan, in your case, you've been like, on the consumer side of things, and when you're doing consumer marketing, there's a lot of data to play around with. So in your experience at your previous organization, how has data really helped you? Can you share some examples where data has really kind of helped you take decisions and delivered exceptional ROI for you?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a great question. I'll kind of give an example from purely from a retail perspective. And typically, I think in India, consumption is a lot driven by festivities. As we call it, fasting and feasting becomes a big part of consumption in India. So I'll give an example of Durga Puja. I'm sure everyone knows it. It's largely celebrated in the eastern part of the country, right? But there are Bengalis across the country, right? So how do you make it relevant? So if you look at, I mean, and Delhi or Bombay or so many parts, right, which has such a strong Bengali community, if I go by the traditional sense, then I typically go back and celebrate Durga Puja or consumption or fashion or whatever in the eastern part. So that's where I think data played a huge role, because there is Bengalis across the country. How do you identify and how do you make it personal for them, right? Durga Puja is as important to somebody in Calcutta, to in Bombay, to in Delhi. I think that played a big role for us, to identify from their consumption, what do they come by, to identify that these are the Bengali community. I think the second part was also surname to figure things out, and we created cohorts, right? And what we did was we actually built in through social media, kind of sharp targeted them, right? Because if I talk to Durga Puja to a Maharashtrian, it's not going to connect. Like it needs to be in some sense accurate, right? And I remember creating a whole social media campaign out of this, and building one more interesting thing of Durga Puja is it's not just a religious festival. There is a lot of romance which happens among the youth. That was our base of the story. We created and we showcased fashion, and believe me, I think fashion growth wasn't restricted only to the eastern part. I think we saw it, in many parts of the country, which kind of helped us to create that growth. So that was pretty interesting. And I think if you just take this base and see how, I mean, India is so versatile, right? Like every pocket has something or the other, right? So how do you pick up data? How do you even create merchandising for that matter? And how do you create engagement? How do you create connect? How do you create storytelling in the most personalized manner? I think that's kind of helped us to do that.
Continuing with the same example, for instance, now with predictive analytics being the latest, buzzword. How do you think predictive analytics would have helped you? Or how do you use predictive analytics to now take the same model and say, okay, these are the 3 scenarios or 4 scenarios that we could probably test out and then predict. Do you think that's something that'll work? And if it'll work, then how do you make it work?
Yeah, it's definitely going to work in the sense that that'll help me to sort of build a lot of personalized content for the right cohort, if I have to say. I think consumers, as I always say, that if you look at the marketing funnel, they are somewhere or the other. You create awareness, and therefore it builds consideration, and therefore they take action, and then you ensure that they become loyal to you, right, over a period of time. So I think at what stage the consumer is, if you are able to build your content or any kind of a program with the consumer at this level. I mean, I'm just giving a very 360-degree kind of a view right now, but I think this is how it can help to create a far more larger engagement. Somebody who really knows your brand but may not have kind of engaged or purchased, then what do you do? What kind of content do you sort of give? And somebody who's kind of bought with you, but you ensure that how do you bring in loyalty, right? So I think this is the kind of funnel, and if you are able to predict and if you are able to create right content for these consumers, I think that can really help in terms of making it far more sharper.
Agnello, coming to the same topic, but in a different context. So, one of the dilemmas which creative people face is when you make pitches, right? Or when you come up with campaign ideas, in a room full of 10 people, you will have 10 different views, right? How do you think you can use AI perhaps to, logically recommend that what is going to resonate with what segments of audiences, rather than, Mera wala pink challenge that everybody has, that, everybody has a different concept of pink. So the pink I may like, the pink somebody else will like is changed. And today with data, personalization, and AI, maybe you can find the right pink which will resonate with the most number of people. So do you think that will help creative people like you get faster conclusion on choices when you make ideas and pitches?
See, creativity, its prime differentiator is that it's a discipline which is subjectively evaluated, correct? 2 plus 2 will be 4 irrespective of who is counting it in the world. But creativity is not like that. On a given day, the same 4 people in a room may like something. On another given day, the same 4 people in a room may not like something. So in the scenario that you're describing, which is a lot of people in the room have a different point of view, I guess you can use AI to consolidate that, but then creative will have to become slave to what they found via AI. So responsibility of, say, communication or a campaign or marketing gets diffused because you've done what has been chosen by AI. But eventually, I think once everybody is using AI, then we'll be back to a circle where you say, okay, now how do we break AI and look different from what AI is not using? Already, I know creative people can easily tell what is written by ChatGPT, 9 times out of 10, just by seeing it. And soon, lay people will be able to tell as well. So if everybody is using AI, whenever you get an example of somebody who's gone by their gut and challenged AI, that will become an exception to the norm, that will become valued and sought after and currently desired by marketeers. So for example, there is a story writing software for long format, right? You can put your characters, you can put your plot, and then it tells you the various directions in which the plot can go. A lot of writers use it and buy it. They put their characters, put their plot, find out the various directions the plot can go, and only so that they don't do that, because they know that this is what has been, so now we have to find something different from that. So it will reduce, it's a probability game. It will reduce your options, it will probably help you sell, it will probably help you get consensus in a room, but eventually somebody has to take responsibility for that consensus, and that responsibility can't be to a machine. No, everybody says, we don't know, we went by what AI said, correct? Yeah. But today there is some person taking responsibility, and he gets penalized or rewarded for his responsibility, and the probability of him pulling it off right more often makes him probably a more paid or more sought after creative person or force. So, like I said earlier, it's a very giant scribble pad to get all your options out of the way, but a smart marketer will say, okay, once I've zeroed in on the bullseye, where in the bullseye I want to place that, you, me, that's what we are paid to decide. Otherwise, you're eventually looking at a place where you don't need marketers at all. You can just feed in your brief and get a campaign.
So this question is to both of you. What are the ethical considerations while using AI? What are the challenges you see, the misuse opportunities perhaps?
There is one big ethical legal elephant in the room on that, and I think in various parts of the world, as far as I can read, the jury's out on that. Because AI is picking stuff off the web, correct? I do not know, and I think it's not even yet clear, when they take stuff, they are not actually creating that stuff. Suppose you say, I want an elephant in the middle of this boardroom. It will show it to you, but it will take the elephant from somewhere and will take a boardroom from somewhere. Now, who owns the rights to those original pieces of creativity, and do they have to be compensated? Because AI is creating a brand new image which you use, so are you going to find, say, the 10 or 20 IP holders of the various pieces of already done creative which it has used to assimilate into a brand new piece of creative, and can they then sue you for using their image? Like, if you take music, it is if you say, make me a Hindi song the way the Beatles would have done it, it will probably pick the strings that they use, probably pick some melody that they use, probably use words from somewhere. But sooner or later, there should be, I think, an ethical issue with you are using somebody else's actual creative to create a new piece of creative. So in the old world, without AI, when you did a remix, you had to pay the original guy. And then you added your instruments, and somebody used your remix to make a new remix. They had to pay you and the original guy, and everybody else had it. So that will be a continuing problem with them. There will be likely class action suits, and I think it's already happening in Australia and parts of Europe. So they will have to sort that out eventually once AI is being used for high-end commercial gain.
Pawan, your point?
Yeah, so I just want to add to the earlier point. I just feel that while we speak of AI and lots of these things, but in my head, I think creation will always be original, right? I think it starts from there. And then obviously scaling, personalization is something which you can take, obviously, a lot of these tools help and so on, right? I'll just give an example, right? I mean, a lot of these young boys and girls, they wear loose clothes, right? 5 years back, if you ask anybody, they'll say, no, that's not what they want to wear. But I think some things are created. I also think, like a lot of times consumers don't know what they want, right? So if you go and ask them, they'll always say no, right? And that's where you create, you become original, you create it, and therefore you let consumer know that I think you need this, right? So there'll always be a good balance. Originality, creation will always be there. Of course, as I said, scale, personalization, a lot of it can be created through AI. Obviously, from an ethical standpoint of view, as Aggie said, that somewhere I think it will be caught, right? If not today, tomorrow, it will be caught, and that's where consumer will also start differentiating, right? I mean, that's my view.
Sure.
I think if you're using it to write an email, I don't think it comes under the spotlight of IP. But if you're using it to make a campaign to sell your brand or a product or something like that, then it's just common sense that some original guy may see his part of his thing there and say, where's my money?
Jumping a little, and I'm skipping a couple of questions because I know Pawan has a hard stop in a few minutes. So I'll come to the last question that I have. Now, we always talk about, there are many Indias, and at a regional level, at a cultural level, and then there's also at economic level where we say, there's India and Bharat. So do you think with technology and data and everything else, the two Indias are converging or they're diverging, and if so, in what way?
Okay, this is I think it's one of my most favorite point of discussion. especially coming in from retail, because you see Bharat and you see India in that sense. Uh, my view is that technology and especially social media has really made the world a very small place, right? I remember growing up, there was an aspiration of, things from Bombay. Bombay se aaya hai, right? It's no longer there, right? I come from a small town. My in-laws are from Siliguri. So there was a sense of aspiration for them to sort of have anything from, let's say, Bombay or any big cities. Today, I think it's just a click away for them equally. They equally know that, what's going on in the world, forget India alone. And I personally feel that, aspirations really thrive in Bharat. Trust me, you. I mean, I've seen that in retail, like they have more time than us. We are only running. Like day in and day out, we are constantly running from all the places, right? They have time to socialize. They have time to take pictures. They have time to put things on Instagram. There is so much which is happening. So I feel that this is definitely merging, and I think it's for good, if you ask me. That's what I've experienced, that's what I've seen.
Agnello, your point?
So I think this Bharat India narrative is it's a thing created by media to probably get you more looks and eyeball. I don't think the Bharat people think we are Bharat, correct? And there is that India. So it is true what he said, that not only AI, starting with the internet, the first step towards democratization of any influence is exposure. So first that was done by the internet, which is what they are seeing, is what we are seeing, is what Kim Kardashian is seeing. Then comes, after exposure comes awareness and then action. So now the country is divided into, what do you call it, social media cohorts, like the youth is versus not youth and all that. I don't think Bharat and this exists. It's a slogan coined by probably politicians and stuff like that, or media people, to give you more traction in terms of the content you make. But Bharat people don't say, "Nahi, hum Bharat hai, wo India." They say, "Ah, India hai." Makes no difference.
And one quick one before we end and open the panel for questions. What jobs, in your opinion, in marketing are going to be most impacted by AI? Both. It's open to both.
I think research will be and should be impacted, because I think the quantum of people you research and in their own natural stimulus when they are interacting on the web is far more accurate than calling 8 goggle-eyed people into an AC room, giving them coffee and samosa and asking them what do you think of an ad. And I have always had a problem with that kind of research setup, because I feel that he's a regular guy going to work. You call him into one room, he's looking around, you give him stuff to eat, drink, and he watches and you ask him, he feels obliged to give you some feedback. He's never going to say, no, I think everything's fine, and go away. He's saying, "Main kuch to bola, ye change karo, wo change karo." He would have changed the Apple laptop or phone if he was asked in that kind of stimulus. So I think a far more larger sample size, wider expanse of research in a far more natural and unsimulated surroundings will make research far more accurate, far more reliable, and probably completely taken over by AI.
On your take.
Yeah, I think, as he said, research is one part, but also I think what it's also doing is helping us to sort of also create a huge, I mean, see, like 5-6 years back, it was all about advertising and narrative, and you create one TVC and that's what you do. We used to do that like twice or thrice a year and our job was done, but today is not the case, right? I think there is a lot of personalization which is expected. I think consumers are also expecting. I think it's helping us to expand that for sure, create a lot more, right? And therefore create, like be part of the customers now. I think that's what it's kind of helping us. What's going to take away, I think a lot of executional bandwidth which used to like happen, I think that is kind of definitely getting reduced. There's a speed which is sort of coming in the workforce, but it's also adding a lot of pressure to us equally.
Sure. So I think we can take a few questions, and please raise your hand, introduce yourselves. Can we get the mic, please? And if you want a particular panelist to answer, please ask whom you want, who's the question addressed to.
This is my first program with the Financial Express. My name is Vishal Sanghvi, and I am an innovation and business accelerator, and running my R&D company last 25 years. What I see this today's first program theme is 21st century in marketing. I see when I am deeply involved in the R&D, actually, different things. You are a community who are connect with the, what is the requirement in the market? What is the taste of the audience, actually, market? But when many people do the innovation in different area, actually, they didn't know. They something create out of the box, their own visualization, actually. So how this community will be connect properly with the, startup community, actually, where you become mentor, part of the something, different, because government do a lot of practicing. But I see the missing this community we connect with things. Otherwise, any innovation to make market fit require 2-3 years time. And they go to market. It's not about valuation, it's for market price fit also requirement, actually. So this is my also a very requirement in India to, marketing, what your thought process, community connect with this, our, startup community and innovation, something. Thank you.
I think that was more of a comment than a question, I guess. So thank you. And the events like this are meant to create this kind of a collaboration where you can network with people and figure out.
I do think AI will replace mentorship.
But I might ask about why this community is not connect with this entire, bandwagon of the startup India, and lot of things are happening. I don't see, so that's why I want to this, how you can just have a connect with this. Thank you.
So maybe, I don't know, there's no reason. First of all, we are not a community. We are just individuals who are chasing our own dreams, and we are called here and we talk about this. So somebody should start with making it a community. Then it will have a representative.
Right.
Yeah, but we are not really technically a community or a group or there's a head or anything like that yet in India. So maybe whoever should start by saying, let's make it a community.
Sure.
Then we'll figure out how to connect.
Thank you. I think the rest of the questions can probably happen offline, and I've been signaled that we are running ahead of time. So thank you everyone. Thank you, Pawan. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.